So looking back, would you have done anything differently with these immigration sweeps?
No, my guys did nothing wrong, and I didn't do anything wrong. And I hope that with the help of my attorney, we'll outline that at our press conference.
All right, according to a new report by the Washington Post, Donald Trump tried to intervene in the federal case against former Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio before the case even went to court this past spring. He asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions if he could drop the charges against Arpaio. When he was told that would be inappropriate, he decided to just grant Arpaio clemency. The White House has confirmed the Post's report, saying it was a normal discussion about legal matters. As a reminder, Arpaio was convicted for ignoring a judge's order to stop detaining people of color that he felt looked like undocumented immigrants. He was facing up to 6 months in prison, but will not serve any sentence now. Joining me now is Joe Arpaio's attorney, Jack Wilenchik. Jack, thanks for joining us. What is Joe Arpaio feeling like today?
Well, as you heard, he expects to make some public statements this coming week. And, you know, we've been saying this is the culmination of a long effort. And by the way, you know, I do have to correct something that you said there. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of misinformation. This was not a conviction for racial profiling or targeting people of color. This was a conviction for ignoring a judge's order that said you are not an immigration officer, and therefore do not act like an immigration officer. It was a very technical order.
Well, let's put it up on the, you're a lawyer, so let's put it up on the screen.
Sure.
The 2013...
I can't see your screen, but go ahead.
I'll read it to you. The 2013 court order that Sheriff Arpaio didn't comply with, for which he was convicted of contempt, reads...
2011.
There's a 2013 and a 2011 one. So I've got the 2013.
There's a 2011.
Right. Well, let me read
so you got the wrong order. That's okay. Go ahead.
Let me just read what this says. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is enjoined from using Hispanic ancestry or race as any factor in making law enforcement decisions pertaining to whether a person is authorized to be in the country. Now let me put up the 2011 report from the Justice Department, separate issue altogether. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office engages in racial profiling of Latinos, unlawfully stops, detains, and arrests Latinos, and unlawfully retaliates against individuals who complain, routinely punishes Latino inmates for failing to understand commands given in English, a chronic culture of disregard for basic legal constitutional obligations. So I think it's fair to say racism is a very big part of this.
Well, so the order you put up there, again, I can't see it, but that's the 2013 order. He was never convicted of violating that order, and the Sheriff's Office complied with that order. It was a 2011 order that he was convicted of violating, which merely said, as I say, it said, do not detain anybody based solely on them being an illegal alien without more. And the basis for that was the Sheriff's Office had previously been deputized to be immigration officers. And they had that authority revoked by the Obama administration in 2009. So in 2011, a federal court judge said, you're no longer immigration officers, don't act like them. The problem became the Sheriff's Office looked at that order and they said, well, you know, we're not detaining people just for being illegal aliens. The only reason we would is if we're going to turn them over to ICE or Border Patrol, which is a common practice. Law enforcement agencies across the country do that. That's what he was convicted of.
They don't arrest people just to turn them over. That's not common practice. That's actually what the...
Correct, and that never happened here.
Right. So there was a 2009 order, and then there was a 2011 order, right? So the point is, on what basis was Sheriff Arpaio and his deputies detaining people who otherwise wouldn't have been detained other than the fact that they thought that they might be undocumented immigrants?
Great question. So they were all lawful stops, and the government admitted that. There were lawful stops, whether it was, you know, for example, in one case, stopping a guy in suspicion of armed burglary. And what would happen is after they would clear the guy, you know, they would learn he potentially was an illegal immigrant. Typically what would happen would be somebody would be stopped, they would ask for their license and registration, they wouldn't have an American ID, maybe they just have a Mexican passport, they'd only be speaking Spanish, and the deputy would ask them in Spanish, well, are you here legally or not? And the guy would admit, I'm not here legally. What then happened was the deputy would call ICE or Border Patrol and say, well, I've got an illegal alien here, what do you want me to do with him? And Border Patrol in every single case would say, bring him on down here. That's what the sheriff was just convicted of. That's what his office was just accused of disobeying the judge's order and doing. Again, that's a common practice. Happens all across the state, happens all across the country.
I mean, again, this is where the issue is. Not really a common practice. We have the mayors of Chicago. We have the mayors of San Francisco, the mayors of New York, mayors across the country who are saying it's not a common practice. In fact, it hurts our ability to actually police when people don't come to the police because they think that our job is to turn them over to immigration authorities. So to say it's empirically not common practice in America to do that.
Well, Allie, you know, this is why we have trials. We had the head of Border Patrol here in Arizona testify that is a common practice. I'm quoting him, across the state of Arizona. And of course, this is not Chicago. This is the state of Arizona, and we are on the border. And that was his testimony, that that is a common practice at the time and currently amongst law enforcement agencies in the state of Arizona.
Right, but again, the 2009 instruction by the Obama administration applied to both Chicago and Arizona. It is a federal law that a sheriff is not actually supposed to be above.
No, so there was a 2009 action by the Obama administration.
Yes, correct, but that has legal standing.
They revoked his authority.
Correct, which has legal standing, right? So if one's authority is revoked, then one can't do that thing.
The confusion became, can we still cooperate with the feds? In other words, if we have a guy, we've done a lawful stop, whether suspicion of armed burglary, whatever it was, and we learn he's a legal alien, can we still turn him over to the feds? The judge wasn't clear on that, and he wasn't clear until 2013 when he said specifically, hey, Sheriff's Office, do not even turn people over to the feds. Don't even hold them to be turned over to the feds if they're illegal.
Is it likely that Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's been at this for decades, was actually confused?
Absolutely. That was our defense at trial. The problem we had at trial was we had to try contempt of court to the court. And that wasn't a fair trial. We asked for a jury 4 or 5 times. You know, trying contempt of court to the court, sort of like trying a crime to the victim. We never got a jury. We should have had one. And at this point, you know, all that's left to do is for the president to step in as a check on the system and due to serious doubts about the conviction, and I believe the president believes it's a wrongful conviction, to pardon him.
All right, I want to bring in Richard Painter, who sort of sees this a little differently. Richard?
Well, part of the problem here is there's an attitude toward judges that's really very destructive. We see this with the president, who himself said that a Mexican-American judge should be disqualified, recused from hearing his own case because the judge is Mexican-American and therefore might be biased against the president. We heard that during the campaign. The president, again, when the courts of appeal struck down his immigration order, referred to so-called judges. We have here a sheriff who was told to do something by a judge and didn't do it. That is contempt of court. That is what he was convicted of doing. We need to have rule of law and order in this country. And if a judge tells somebody to do something, they do it. And that includes the President of the United States, a sheriff, or anyone else. That's law and order. And I think that this president has shown contempt for law and order. What he did was try to obstruct justice in this investigation by going to Jeff Sessions, same playbook he's used with the Russia investigation. And then when that doesn't work, he follows through with a pardon. And I fully expect he may try the same with the Russia investigation. So this is about a lot more than the trial of Sheriff Joe down there in Arizona. This is a national phenomenon, disrespect for the judiciary, disrespect for rule of law and order, and it's very dangerous for our country.
Let me ask you this, Jack. What is Joe Arpaio going to get out of a press conference on this topic?
Well, at this point, as we all know, Sheriff Joe does love talking to the media, and you know, while the criminal case was pending, obviously, on the advice of myself and my co-counsel, we told him not to talk to media. And at this point, I think he's been dying to do that and to get his voice heard. He's got the First Amendment right to do that.
I will say, you said that the sheriff, and I'm not sure I'm fully on side on this one, but you said the sheriff may have been confused by the 2009 order, and it was clarified in 2011.
13.
No, 2009 was when the Obama administration lifted his responsibility to deal with this, right? Let's be clear on that. That's what this stems from. Right, it was 2009.
Failed to continue his 287G certification. Yeah,
right.
Fair
so
statement.
the point is, in this past December, the sheriff has gone on and said that he's proved that President Obama is a Kenyan-born Muslim. I'm a Kenyan-born Muslim. He wasn't at any of the meetings. This sort of has to hurt his credibility. It helps your argument that the former sheriff may be confused, though.
Yeah, let's not forget he's an 85-year-old man, and there's a lot of testimony. Well, what happened at trial, there was testimony from everybody at the sheriff's office, even his own lawyer, you know, chiefs, lieutenants, sergeants. Everybody read that order, nobody understood it. So, you know, if he's in criminal contempt of court, they all were. And I agree with what Mr. Painter said. It's important to respect the courts. Our defense, though, is that criminal contempt has to be clear and definite. That's actually one of the elements of criminal contempt. The order has to be clear and definite. The judge says to you, you know what, you need to stand in court. If you don't stand up, that's criminal contempt. The judge says, you know what, if you say one more thing, one more bad thing.
Was held in contempt. I mean, the judge made that determination. So the sheriff, and you may have a different view of that, but the judge did make that determination.
Incorrectly, absolutely. And that's why, if not for the pardon, we would have appealed this.
All right. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Jack Wilenchik and Richard Painter, good to see both of you.